Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to get the category ID and then edit this category into the Modal. So let's get started. So here we are getting this console.log. So let me clear this console so it will more easy to view it for you. Okay, here I'm going to grab the ID, right? So I'm going to grab the category ID. So how I can grab the category ID? So I need to mention this, right? This I mean that I'm clicking on this where I'm clicking on it, I'm clicking on edit. So I want to get the ID from this data ID. So I'm clicking on this data, I'm clicking on the edit href. I'm referencing this, that's why here, right? So I think I need to add this like this, oops, like this, and then I'm calling this data ID. So I'm referencing which ID? I'm referencing this ID. Let me go here. So here I define this data ID and I pass this ID here. So I want to get this ID. So I am getting this ID, I'm using this data method in the jQuery, and then I'm getting this key and getting its value, right? So now if I console this out, console.log, okay, and log this ID. So save this one, get refresh, and check that we are getting any ID or not. Okay, so click on it, and yes, we are getting the ID. So if I click on this 4, so we are getting the 4, so it means that we are getting the ID. So now the time is to first build a route and then send this request to this one. So we are going to build an edit route. So I'm simply copying this route here and make this category, and oops, what I did this. So here I'm going to make this ID, and then I'm going to implement this edit here, right? Categories ID, then edit, and these two are also will be edit. So let's copy this and go to the controller, and here I'm going to create this edit method which accept an ID in the parameter, right? So let's go here and implement this public function edit which accept an ID parameter. By the way, you can also get this through route model binding. So I already explained what is route model binding in the previous my series, okay, not my previous videos, in my previous series. Okay, and here I'm going to return here I'm going to get the ID, and then I'm going to execute this. So first I'm going to return it, and then I'm going to perform some operations, right? Save this one and go here, and now I'm going to let me name this route. So I'm going to name this I name this edit, right? So let's go here and add an Ajax call, right? So when I click on this edit, so I want to get the ID and then open the Modal and field no, first I want to get this ID and then send an Ajax call that this ID exists or not, and then refill this ID when we got success. So let's implement the $.ajax, okay, and here I'm going to add first parameter URL. So our URL would be what? So we are going to add our URL. So URL would be this route, and then this route would be the categories.edit, and then I need to pass the second parameter here. So what's the parameter? It would be an ID, right? So I need to pass this ID, but this JavaScript does not so how we can pass the ID? It's a tricky step. So we need to type comma here and leave this parameter as empty, right? And then need to go here and make this like this slash, and then after this you need to add an ID, and then here let me add the ID which we are getting at top, and then I need to type edit, right? So here I want to also add this slash, so it will return this edit route, and then we are passing this ID and this one, right? Okay, so what's next? Next I need to define the method. So method would be our we are going to get the data, that's why I'm going to add this here, get, right? And then data would be what data we want to send. So we don't want to send any data, so we just going to implement this success function. Okay, it will be a function, and then I'm going to console dot log, and log what? I'm going to log the response, and let me pass this response response here, and I'm copying this again for error function. So I'm going to make this faster. Oops. Okay, select this error, right? So now I'm sending this call on this edit route with this parameter. So let's get refresh. Hope we will get error, and we will fix them in our video. Okay, so we are not getting anything. It means that we did any syntax mistake. So uncaught unexpected string on which line? So on this line. Okay, so we are using the concatenation of PHP, so we need to use the JavaScript concat the string from this plus symbol, not the dot is used in the PHP. Okay, it's still uncaught error. So what's the error? Oh, I need to also use this plus here. So now it's fine. It's fine, and give it a refresh, and yes, it's loaded. So if I click on it, so it's added to, it's going to category /edit/to/edit. so it means that it's going twice time. So how can I rid of this one, slash and then to/edit? So you can pass here a URL method, but let me type this through URL, and then we will update this with the different slash. I don't need to type this slash. So we are referencing that category, then slash, then its ID, and then we are going to implement this edit. Let's click on it, and yes, so it means that now we are getting the ID 1. So if I click on it, so we are getting the ID 2. It means that our request is successfully sent. If you want to check that your request is successfully sent or not, so let's click on this edit, and it's telling it that localhost 8000 categories /ID/edit, and this request would be 200. It means that it's returning the success code, right? So now let's go here and first find this category in the database. So you can find this using category find, and you can also call find or fail. So it's totally upon you, which will catch the exception by default. So I'm not going to catch the exception, I'm going to catch the exception of myself. I'm not going to use the built-in exception. So category. So remember that first you need to catch the exception, and then you need to execute your stuff, because sometimes maybe your code will be executed. So it's not good practice to first implement your logic and then catch the exception. So first to catch the error and then implement this. If this one is the category is not found, throw 404 exception, and if this is found, oops, not it's abort, it's a abort. Okay, and then if we find this category, then we are going to return this back. So return response, and then I'm going to, you can directly return this category. So by default Laravel return this category, return this value as JSON. So you don't need to wrap your string inside JSON twice time. Okay, I'm returning this category. So let's give it a refresh. So it's going to print all of the category attributes. So go to the console, and here let's clear this console, click on to and wait for and yes, it's printing mobile Samsung Electronics. If I click on this, it's Laronia corner, and great, we are getting the result. So let's go here, and now the time is to open a Modal and then fill all of the information into the Modal. So let me check the video size, that it is going bigger. Yes, it's going bigger, but leave it, we will do this in this video. Okay, so here I'm going to open a Modal, right? So what's the Modal ID? I think it would be Ajax Modal. So let me also confirm that is this I'm getting the exact ID or not. So this would be Ajax Modal, and this would be a class, not an ID. And then here I'm going to call this show, right? Not show, Modal show, Modal, and then show, right? Save this one and give it a refresh. Okay, let's click on it, and yes, now our Modal is appeared. So now we are going to make this change this create category, because we are going to update our stuff. So here I'm going to, instead of create, I'm going to replace with edit, right? So how I can do this? So we already did this in our previous videos. So we need to first grab the Modal, it would be ID. So Modal heading or title, I'm not sure, let me verify it from there. So this would be Modal title, and save btn. Modal title, and what title you want to set? So I want to set that edit category. Okay, and then I also want to make this update category. I'm doing this for button. So what is the button ID? It would be a save btn. Okay, save this one, and let's get refresh. So we are just updating the title and button text, right? So let's click on this, and yes, it's edit category and it's update category. Great. So now we are going to fill this name and this type, right? So let's go here, and here I'm going to implement this dollar. So what is our ID of this name? So this would be a name, right? And then what I want to append this, so I want to append a value to this name. And which value I want to append this? I want to append response dot, I want to append the name, because we are getting the name here, right? We are getting a full object, and in the object the name property exists. That's why I added this name. So let's get refresh and check that we are getting the name here or not. So I'm going to click on this first one, mobile, and check that mobile is heading or not. So clicked on it, and no, mobile is not added here. Why? So let me check that. It's name, and no, there is no ID of this name. So let me add this name ID, and also its type, right? This would be a type. So now let's get refresh again. So it's going to grab the this name ID, and then save this and add this mobile into this input. And yes, now it's filled this mobile into this input field. So now the time is to fill this option, right? So this is a little bit tricky, that how you can fill this drop down, right? So you need to go here, where let me find the exact place here. So I need to add this let me grab its ID. My one button is not working, that's why it's not it's taking too much time to implement this. So here you can search this jQuery append and search option to select here. So we want to select by default to which stored in the database. So here let's click on this first link, jQuery append option to select. So in this way you can select this. So this one is the answer is there. So I'm going to the Stack Overflow and copy this stuff. Okay, so you can directly copy it. So first I'm going to make this comment, and then I'm going to make this hard coded, this value and option, and then I'm going to add the dynamic stuff. So first I need to add this type, give it a refresh here. Let me check the exact syntax. Okay, type my option, and it's good. Okay, let's click on this type, and yes, it's added this my option. So it means that we can now add these values here, right? So we added this. So let me explain it to you. First we reference our select box, and then we call append, right? So append is used to append something on existing one, right? That's why we use this append. And in the append we want to implement our option. So option is basically when we add option tag from the HTML, so it will add this from through jQuery. So in the option we are adding value. You remember that we have two things. The first one is value tag, and in the after this value, in the inside the tags we add the value. So in the jQuery you can add this through text. So here what value I want to add? So I want to add the response dot id, because we are getting the response from there. So here I want to add the response dot what I want to add the type, right? So when this will be added, I want to make this auto selected. So how I can do this? So make this add this selected here, right? So let's get refreshed. It will be auto selected when you click on it. Okay, let's get refreshed. So I clicked on it again, so it will auto fill the electronic, and it's not filled, and it's filled and empty, right? I don't know why it's filled the empty. Let me choose a different category. I choose to this one, and it's still appending the empty, right? So how to get rid of this empty? It's a type response dot type. So why it's appending this empty? So here I need to make this option. Let me type this response dot type. Let me console this out. What's returning it? Console dot log. And what we are returning it from this type. Let me check the video size. It's going bigger, but I will complete this in this video. I'm not going to do it in another video. So give it a refresh, and it's returning electronic, but it's not appending it here. Why? Because we are having this electronic is capital. Maybe that's why it's not appending it here. Option selected, we are appending it. So response dot type, and this selected. If I remove this selected, so what's going to happen? Okay, wait for a moment. And here you can also find multiple solution, like you can add this like this. We are going to implement different one if it's not going to work. So let's click on it, and yes, and it's appended the electronic. So it's we are unable to select this value. So if I go back here, let me add the selected, and selected would be like this. So maybe this is going to work. So let's give it a try. If it's not going to work, we are going to implement the different solution. There are a lot of solutions you can do this. Select it, and it's still turning the empty. My select my empty, append option value 1, select refresh. You can also implement this one. Let me implement this thing. Okay, and here I'm going to add this like this, and then I'm going to add this type, and then my option, and this would be selected. Give it a refresh and check that what we are going to return. Okay, click on it, and yes, my option is now selected, right? So here I'm going to now add the value attribute here, value of this option. So what's the value? So value would be, let me concat this value here. So value would be the response dot id, and then this option text would be the, oops, why it's not my extruder is clicking twice time. So here I need to also add this plus button. So here I need to add this response dot type, right? So I think I don't need to add this quotation. Let me test it. No, I need to add this quotation. Let's save this one and give it a refresh. Hope it will be appended now. So let's get refresh, click on it, and yes, now electronic is by default selected, right? So in the next video we are going to make this capitalized, its first letter would be capitalized. So how we can do this? So I will meet you in the next one, and we'll do this in the next video. Bye bye.